Everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author, Me and Moses the Missing, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook, and brought to you by The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on a life update, including 30 exquisite paintings and more. Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist, Serena Wagner, and brought to you by Sensei Swing, Eric Diamond with All of Me. New music coming soon, ericdiamondmusic.com. Check it out today. We're here with an amazing lady who's a top therapist, best-selling author, thought leader, public speaker, university instructor, yoga teacher, and a dedicated mental health professional committed to guiding people in their journey to healing and self-discovery. 15 years experience in mental health with expertise in stress, burnout, coping, and more. Has a new book, which is a practical journey towards finding out who you are, what brings you happiness and meaning to your life, which is identity and set attainable goals, gratitude, and intention. And the book is called Finding Your Purpose, a guidebook to a more meaningful life. And how do we accomplish that? We'll find out 1 minute. Live, ladies and gentlemen, plus studios somewhere in beautiful outside of British Columbia. The amazing multi-talented top therapist, best-selling author, thought leader, and more with Finding Your Purpose, a guidebook to a more meaningful life, the multi-talented Cindi Saj. Cindi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
You are wonderful, Mike. Thank you very much for the great introduction. I definitely appreciate when others introduce me and save me all those different labels. So thank you, and I'm honored to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on board as well, too, being multi-talented, which deserve that honor. So you're a top therapist, best-selling author, thought leader, public speaker, university instructor, yoga teacher, and dedicated mental health professional committed to guiding people in their journey to healing and self-discovery. You've done this for 15 years in the mental health industry with experience in stress, burnout, coping, and more. You have a new book, which is a practical journey towards finding who you are, what brings you happiness and meaning in your life. The book is called Finding Your Purpose, a guidebook to a more meaningful life. Before getting all that, Cindi, tell us how you first got started.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to being raised, I think that's where a lot of therapists get their first experience of how they want to kind of be in the world. And I had a really great mentor with my mom, and definitely put her through the ringer with a lot of adolescent stuff, and having that
That's a
support
good
and
start. I like that.
right. And having that support is something that not all kids get, or not all adolescents get, or not all, people get. And so kind of seeing the privilege that I received from getting some really great, amazing, mental health support from my mom, it kind of put me in the path of, exploring psychology, exploring criminology, exploring social work, and it kind of leads me to where I'm at today with, I do have my PhD in social work, master's in social work, and then BA in psychology and criminology. And as I've kind of navigated this academic professional life, I've realized that the whole part about to get knowledge is to share knowledge. And this is kind of my passion is whatever I've learned, it's kind of learned to share. It's not for me to kind of hold all these great secrets and tools and strategies to make me a better human. It's actually to kind of learn these things, to share these things. And that's kind of where I'm at. And my purpose really is to kind of share what I've learned.
Hmm. That's rather interesting. You got to share alike. I think that aligns with most value in society. And what was that one exact precise moment that simply influenced you into what you do in the rest of your career? Besides your mom being a therapist, what was that one exact moment that simply said, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, so the neat part is my mom's not a therapist. She's actually just a really phenomenal, patient mom. She kind of, had these innate tools and skills to kind of help me. Early on in my adolescent life, I was bullied, and she really was that stand-up person to kind of, be that support for me. And had it not been for her, who knows where I would have ended up. And, seeing so much bullying in social media, so much bullying campaigns that are happening across the world, whether it's racism, sexism, whatever is happening, classism. There's a lot of hate in the world, and that's not a good place to live, and that's not a place that I ever want to live. And so whatever I can do to change that. And so I think it is the times where I've really been, ostracized, or I've been isolated, and to have that one person to support me has really made the difference. So if I could be that one person for someone else, that's kind of what I'm here to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important as well too. That we went through bullying before social media hit, and what were some of the ways you dealt with bullying back then, and with social media, how would you have handled it today?
Yeah, I couldn't, that's the scary part is that I'm not going to tell you my age, but I definitely was alive and around before social media was created in the sense of, bullying really was at school or by the phone. It wasn't accessible 24/7, by, email, or it wasn't accessible by like a direct message, or it wasn't accessible by posting, slanderous things. It really didn't ever reach that peak. And definitely hearing and seeing what kids go through now, even with, sharing pictures that aren't appropriate to be shared, stuff like that wasn't part of my generation or my upbringing. So to only kind of be that support for others, and I couldn't even imagine what it is like nowadays. And so to be that safe place to kind of help people unpack bullying behavior, or, this idea of feeling like I'm not good enough, or feeling like, I'm damaged, or I'm flawed, or, I don't belong. Those are all things that we're, as a society, we're really pumping out a lot. Not feeling good enough is kind of what social media's platform is about, right? Is knowing what we need to buy to be good enough, or knowing what we need to do to kind of, look perfect. The filters out there to kind of make us look perfect, right? All these things that are happening in our society really are challenging and damaging to mental health.
Mhm. I remember too that magazines back in the day had that screaming message of "You're not good enough." Cosmetology, Sports Illustrated, and I think
Yeah.
there's also quite a few others. And I went, let's see, not the housekeeping magazine. You think they're okay, but I could think of a couple
Yeah.
examples that simply screamed at you. It's like you're not good enough, do better, and everything like that. That seemed put more pressure than anything else.
Yeah, and the differences with the timing then to now is that, you go to the grocery store or the bookstore, or, you're out somewhere and you see these, like 10 ways to get prettier, or 10 ways to lose weight, or 10 ways to do this. And like it's a magazine cover. It's not inundating. It's not jumping in as a pop-up ad. It's not, going into your emails. Like it's kind of, you have a bit of separation. Now you don't. People turn on the TV and they're being told, they need to do this to look like this way. Or they're opening their phones and they're getting these, spam messages all the time. So it's a little bit of a different society, and we don't necessarily teach ways to cope.
And I think that's something we need to commit ourselves to and get more of the books. And you've been a thought leader for quite some time, public speaker and university instructor. And what do you teach at your university right now?
Yeah. So I teach kind of two different lenses. So one of them is I teach for the Masters of Counseling Psychology, which I teach actually counselors how to be counselors. And so absolutely love that. I've been a counselor for many years, and just to kind of impart that knowledge on students is so rewarding because I'm helping kind of, train the next helpers, which is fantastic. And then the other side of things, I also teach in the human service program, which is kind of like a social work lens, which also kind of teaches people to work with others. So really kind of my passion is to work with others and then to help others kind of get the tools and skills to help others.
Mhm. And you certainly did find your purpose as well, too. A guidebook to more meaningful life. And how's she do with Dr. Cindi Saj? We'll find out just 1 minute. But first, you listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon, paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those who love you to first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson Zia has gone great reviews. And Eve 11 endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassie, Forrest Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for It Goes Missing by Mia Molson Zia, available on Amazon. Coming soon, Missing 2 by Mia Molson Zia, double the suspense, double the fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote in his times as shepherd, where it started, and complicated yet turbulent relationship with King Saul. This story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also brought to you by Sensei Swing. Eric Dunn has released All of Me, featuring the title track I've Got a New Heartache, Bring Me Sunshine, Strike a Match, and more. Eric's a multi-award winning artist and inducted numerous Hall of Fames, album Entertainer of the Year, and re-released a new CD soon. Check out the amazing Eric Diamond today, ericdiamondmusic.com. Follow on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and all platforms worldwide. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, 40 podcast platforms, heard 100 countries, tickets with you on any mobile device. Follow us on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and more. For great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast, t-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Me and Molson. Great books, merchandise, and more. And support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We hit the amazing top therapist, best-selling author, Dr. Cindi Saj here on the Mike Wagner Show. Before we talk about finding your purpose, a guidebook to a more meaningful life. And of course, we talked about handling bullies and everything like that. One question just came to mind while I was doing some ads and everything. What are some of the more common ways to what would you do nowadays if you encounter a bully? How do you handle bullies? Or basically just like how you just like get them down, like shut up and all that.
Yeah, and so really, the goal of a bully is to make us feel less than, and the goal of a bully really is to isolate. And so those are the two things where, definitely don't feel like you can't tell someone. And that's kind of the big thing about being bullied is tell someone, right? This idea of they only get the power when they kind of have that power over you. And so if you're able to bring in an adult or bring in a friend or bring in someone else to kind of be a support, be your ally, be there with you, it does feel less, overwhelming. And the other part is how do we, manage our emotions, our big emotions that come up when we get bullied. And, we always bring it back to the simple things around you could walk away. You could breathe, and people are always like, oh, breathing doesn't work for me. Really, when you're getting in that panic mode, when you're getting kind of overwhelmed, we often hold our breath. When we get in that fight, flight, and freeze, we often kind of hold our breath, not really sure what to do next. And then when we hold our breath, it kind of makes it extra worse because our brain is like, why isn't my human breathing? And then your brain panics and it actually thinks that you're in a life and death situation. And when you get in a life and death situation, it's hard to logically think. If you see, a bear in front of you, you cannot do math. You cannot, think about,
Or
these big
barely
higher.
do math, to say, barely do math.
Barely do math. So it kind of goes back to even bullies, right? Like we go in this panic mode. And so if we're not even getting like oxygen to ourselves, we're going to be double panicked. And so even just kind of staying calm, keeping calm, breathing, walking away, getting an adult involved, getting a friend involved, getting someone else, involved, is really the best way. And this idea we often hear about like hurt people hurt people. And so, we're looking at society and looking at how we want to navigate the world is, hurt people can also heal people. And so keeping that in mind as you make the choices of what you do with what you have. So, when it comes to bullying, when it comes to what to do about it, definitely, walk away, breathe, tell someone else so you're not dealing with it alone.
Mm-hmm. Or if you get struck by the bully, are you allowed to like strike back? I mean, back in the day, it's like I'm not going to reveal my age. It's not, like you're encouraged to strike back, and they'll go away. You don't get in trouble with the teacher. Nowadays, it's like if you strike back, you're the one to get in trouble, which I think is just like double standard. It's like what's causing it and everything. So.
Well, I mean, obviously safety first, right? And this idea we often say like eye for an eye. And so if someone strikes at us, we strike back at them, what's the value in that? And yes, you want to obviously protect yourself and that's first and foremost. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, if I ever got hit, I probably wouldn't really do much damage if I hit back. So it's kind of like my best interest to get out of there. So, kind of each their own and navigating that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of, like yeah, it's a society that I don't want to live in. So if we can be proactive and even acknowledge the people who are bullies, my job is to work with people who are victims and bullies and to kind of find that purpose for both of them, right? Because all behavior has meaning. And so whether you are a bully or whether you are, asking for help, that behavior has meaning. And let's explore that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And I think we should explore as well too, and find out what's causing bullying. But you also got to care for yourself too. You should find a book, Finding Your Wellness, a guidebook to self care, and tell us more about that book. What inspired you to write?
Yeah, and so there is two books that they do sound very similar. One is Finding Your Purpose, and that's like a guidebook to a more meaningful life, which is kind of the first book that I wrote with a coworker, Krista Smith. And the reason why we wrote it is because kind of going back to my education and my belief around like what I know is to share. It kind of goes to this idea. A lot of people come into counseling for self-esteem or kind of like not really feeling like they belong, or especially with the pandemic, a lot of people kind of had big pivots in life and wanted different careers, and they just kind of didn't feel satisfied with with life for where it was at. And so we wrote this book incorporating all the tools that I've learned from my, education around being a therapist. And so it has a lot of like positive psychology, meaning this idea that people have an innate ability to kind of, be the best version of themselves based on we all have gifts and strategies and strengths that are unique to us. And so it kind of goes back to this idea of like, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? And, how can you make a living off of it? And it really asks us to kind of do that deep digging to figure that out. And so the first book really does look to see getting to know us on a self-awareness level. So the book is guided with different kind of activities, different chapters around, stress and how to kind of cope with stress and even the idea of how to find your strengths and then how to, stuff like vision boards are in there, visualizations are in there, breathing's in there, like all these great tools that a counselor would charge you big bucks for a session to kind of go over.
I
So
believe it. Yes.
all that
Hmm.
stuff's in the first book. And then while we were writing the first book, the chapter around like self-care, and I know self-care is kind of like a buzzword now, and it kind of people roll their eyes and they're getting sick of this word self-care. However, if you kind of look at it from the mental health perspective, right now is where we need to actually care about ourselves and how we're doing in the world. So the chapter that we kind of unpacked around self-care developed into like, more than just a chapter. And so the second book around this idea of finding your wellness, and then that's a guidebook to self-care, is kind of a chapter that grew into a book from the first book. And so it kind of does add in the strategies that I've learned throughout my education and throughout my private practice around
Round.
sharing strategies for self-care. So
Hmm.
it talks about rest. In the society that's capitalist, we're always looking for, how to make more money, how to, use our time more wisely. Rest is not seen as something that we promote as a society, right? Who has time to rest? We have to go through the fast food line. We have to, get high-speed internet. We have to, get things quicker. So we don't rest a lot. So the whole, concept comes where, we're only our best version of ourselves when we actually get to rest and to be who we actually are comes from, getting enough sleep, getting enough nutritious foods, getting enough movement in our life. And these all come from, stepping away from that rat race of capitalism and that idea of, faster, harder, more, I need more money because I need to buy whatever, the next door neighbors have and be better than that. So it kind of asks us to slow down and just to find what strategies you need for your wellness
Hmm.
and to kind of understand your purpose.
Hmm. You talked about getting enough sleep and everything. You say 8 hours and everything. What now? Would 6 hours be considered acceptable in your opinion? Because there are some people that get six
Yeah.
hours of sleep. They're okay. Would 6 hours be acceptable?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So I definitely individualized sleep is important to know, and some people thrive and do fine with 6 hours. And it really will depend on your body and it will depend on kind of a lot of other things. And people who are older definitely need less sleep than, if you're 10 years old and you're getting, 6 hours of sleep, that's probably not going to be enough. Your brain development happens until you're 25. So until you're 25, I would say get as much rest as you can. With that being said, over 9 hours for an adult is actually seen as like, hey, go talk to your doctor if you need 9 hours of sleep a day. When you're growing and your brain's developing, they say, 10, 12 hours is great for kids. There's that balance of as you kind of get over your 25s and you're kind of navigating life, your brain doesn't necessarily need to grow, but it does need to rest. And so 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, that's kind of going to be subjective. It's going to depend on how you feel. Sometimes 8 hours is oversleeping for some people. So great question. And that really will go back to like you doing the research about your own sleep habits and what feels best for you.
And I think that's a really good topic it covers well too with sleep, rest, and everything else like that. And of course, having a diet as well too, and that's changed over the years, especially with social media. 3 meals a day, still the same. Maybe a bit of changes trying to keep up with the current times, or maybe shed some new light on getting proper nutrition and everything else, especially in today's time, after pandemic, social media, and God knows what's going to happen in 2025.
Yeah, and you make a good point around like, diets and nutrition and watching kind of, understanding that there's a lot of faces out there and a lot of different like diets that are out there. And as a funny side story is that I decided to be vegan, 2 years ago. I'm no longer vegan now, but I did try it out just to kind of experiment with eating and kind of seeing how I felt. And it is important to experiment with your eating to see, hey, maybe I don't really love eating red meat, or hey, maybe I really don't love eating cheese or dairy dairy or whatever. So experiment with your own to see how it feels. But as a side story is that I went for a vegan and I was trying it out and I didn't hate it, didn't love it. And later on in life, like about, I don't know, 6 months ago today, I went for intolerance testing and I was told that I have intolerance to chickpeas and I have intolerances to green
Ooh.
peppers and red peppers and all the peppers and then tomatoes and then potatoes. That
No,
was my basic
no.
like diet for a year and a half. And so I'm like, okay, my intolerances were unique to me. And then this whole thing around like, be a vegan and unless it is appropriate for your body and what your body needs, don't do it, right? And so I was like depriving myself of the things that I really needed because I thought that that was going to be good for me. And that's that great, reminder that it needs to be individual. Don't just kind of do what, the Kardashians are doing, or don't just do what someone else is doing. Like, do your own research about your own body and how you feel. Because, maybe cutting out dairy is good for you, or maybe not cutting out dairy is good for you. Maybe eating meat's great for you, or maybe it's not. But you need to do your own research and not just jump on, an article that's being published about someone else. It needs to be about you.
Right. And of course, having all these people on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all that saying, drink this, you'll be strong, drink this, you'll be thin, everything else. And of course, I was thinking about with my experience, blood type is also a factor as well. That some
Yeah.
blood types can tolerate veganism and some it's just strictly meat and potatoes. My personal experience, I tried vegan for a month. I was absolutely sick. And I went back to
Yeah.
meat and potatoes and everything is fine. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think blood type is also a factor as well.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, yeah. And so then that's kind of going back to the idea of like getting to know yourself. And when you find your purpose, it really is finding out who you are, finding out what foods you like, finding out what colors you like, finding out what animals you like, finding out, do you like the mountains? Do you like the oceans? Do you like the plains fields? Like finding out who you are is really like the whole point of being on this planet, right? Is to give kindness to others, give kindness to self, and just to realize who you are, whether that is, like how much sleep you need, whether it is what food you could eat, whether it is whether you prefer dating males or females, like figure that out. And that's kind of the purpose in life.
And of course, finding meaning in work and finding meaning in careers, what you
Hmm.
can do and can't do is also
Yeah.
more important. And we'll get to that with Dr. Cindi Saj in just a minute. You'll listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's You Missing. Also, Sweet Summits by Serena Wagner, based on a life of David, Amazon.com. Keyword Sweet Summits, Serena Wagner, and Sensei Swing, Eric Diamond with all of me, now on ericdiamondmusic.com. We'll be back with the multi-talent Dr. Cindi Saj of Finding Your Purpose, Finding Your Wellness after this timeout. We're back with Dr. Cindi Saj here on the Mike Wagner Show of the two books, Finding Your Purpose and Finding Your Wellness. Of course, I think the big purpose right now for people is finding a career that aligns as well. Of course, you hear these days, I mean, I remember back in the day where it was just, you have to work 40 hours, you have to be dedicated, no matter what your skills are. Now the shift has turned to finding your purpose and aligning your values. So at what point do you think it shifted from you have to work 40 hours, regardless of where you're at, be loyal, to finding aligning with your values and being comfortable? At what point do you think it started to shift?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And individual journeys are look different. With the pandemic or any big world event, people do kind of question like, hey, what am I doing and why am I doing this? And as we kind of, face kind of, the bigger meaning in life, it's kind of like, am I happy in my job? And am I going to work 40 years at a job to retire and then, just die of old age? Or am
After
I
after
going
2 years, I hear after 2 years, it's like, after
Yeah.
2 years, they're dead. I've heard these really sad statistics. I'm like, do I really want to do that? It's like 40 years, you're gone in two. I mean, doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
yeah. And that's, as we kind of look to see like what is the purpose in life? Is it to kind of wake up, go to a job that you may or may not like, you know, do those hours, come home, be grumpy from the job that you do or don't like, and then spend time with your spouse or your kids and be tired and then having to always sleep? Like we kind of are starting to question like, hey, is this actually like the meaning of life? Like, is this actually what I want to be doing with my life? And people are starting to say, actually, no, it's not. I kind of want to do something that I enjoy to do. We're seeing kind of, people burn out. Burnout's a huge thing. And when people burn out, it's not, game over. It really is, hey, wait a minute, like, what do I need to change? And then we're starting to like self-reflect around, hey, what do I need to change? The tough part is right now is that inflation is going up. Things are getting more expensive, and people are like, hey, I'm going to this job. I'm feeling exhausted. I still can't afford what I need. What gives here, right? And so we're kind of in this limbo right now where people are saying there has to be something else. You're starting people to kind of see side hustles, or you're seeing, these entrepreneurs who are taking advantage of stuff like Amazon or taking advantage of, social media platforms to kind of make extra dollars, which, when we're looking at like how do we want to, show up in the world, that might really work for some people, and that's fantastic. And so when people are kind of, sticking to that, 8:30 to 4:30 job and not really feeling very fulfilled, there's opportunities out there to kind of do something different. But it's also that confidence that we need to take that jump to try something different. Also, with that being said, we don't want to work 24/7, right? You need to find that balance of like feeling good and doing what you do and then having time to actually live a life.
And also comes the fact that you're talking about your job, finding your destination, discovery, and everything. Of course, there's also tests as well too to find out what aligns with your jobs, career, and everything. What are some of the tests that you would recommend, that would align with your jobs, values, careers, and everything like that?
And this idea of a test is one thing, but even just like taking in the time to think what you actually want. Not everyone needs to buy a yacht. Not everyone needs to have five cars. Not everyone needs a mansion, right? Like it's kind of like what do you want? And if you don't actually like want these like $1 million things, then why are you aiming for $1 million? Is it just because you want to have $1 million, or can you look at gratitude for what you already have, and can you be okay with, living in your one bedroom studio? And if that's happiness for now, why do you need more? And yes, there's a balance of like motivation and this idea of wanting to kind of get more for yourself. But where's that balance of being happy with what you have? And that's kind of the question too, is when we think about what job we want, what is the purpose of the job? Is it to get that yacht? Do you actually need a yacht? Do you even live by the water, right? Like all these things are kind of great considerations to have when you're looking to see what you want out of life. I always ask clients to kind of sit down and just do the work around like, where do you see yourself in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? Like, what do you want? Do you want to be married, have kids, and live like a life that's just kind of like I'm not gonna say simple, but do you want to live that life? Or do you want to kind of, sacrifice that life of having a family with kids for a career life? Or do you want
You
it
want it
all? And
all. And
kind of exploring a little bit of what you actually want and what's meaningful to you, because not everyone needs to have a Maserati, and no one like not everyone needs to care about, fast cars or big yachts or big houses. And then not everyone wants to play like, professional sports and get multi-million dollars. Not everyone wants to be a rock star and get, like, that's not everyone's goal. And if we're getting caught up in this rat race of needing that because others need that, we need to kind of once again push pause and figure out who we are. Some people love the simple life of just quiet, living in the country, having, maybe like cows, maybe having, off the grid. Like that's some people's desires. And that doesn't cost multi-million dollars, right? So it's kind of like establishing who you are, what you want, and then go from there. So there's not really a test per se. There's a lot of, things to kind of explore with career wise. But if you were to ask anyone, like, if money wasn't a factor, what would you do? That's a great test to kind of figure out, like, what would you do?
And I think that's great as well too. And sometimes people got to deal with the stress of a job and where they get in life, and so also fear of burnout. Maybe some tips on how to handle stress. Also tips, especially burnout, which is getting just running at a rampant pace these days in society.
Yeah. And burnout is something that is sneaky, right? There's different levels and it's on a spectrum. So you might be burnt out by just feeling tired and having 20 cups of coffee in a day, and maybe that's your normal. Or this idea of when you're getting so exhausted that you just don't even feel like waking up, don't feel like going to work, feel depressed, don't have any happiness, start to isolate yourself. And then that leads to a whole other, area of burnout, right? Where you actually don't even want to be alive. And that's kind of, when we're that stage, sometimes, yes, biology and yes, chemicals and depression is something that is real, but sometimes it's our environment. And sometimes it really is this idea of going down that approach of not being happy with anything and not seeing the joys in life because we're so caught up in not having things that we want. We forget what we already have that we want. They say that gratitude is really an antidote to depression. If we can wake up and think about the three things you're grateful for in the morning and three things at night, that's going to change your life. But we forget that, right? Because it doesn't cost money, and we're not having to buy it. That's just already there and it's for free. And so we forget those kind of things.
And of course, social media can play a factor in that as well too. And I keep saying it all the time. I'm reading these stories that a certain influencer passes on like 20, 25, 30, and those type of rates of death, where suicide, whatever it is, they're going at an alarming rate.
Yeah. And with that being said, as social media, it keeps people online. So we forget to do the inside work because we're so obsessed with scrolling and the next video or the next story. And we forget to kind of stop and stop to kind of like actually think about self. Like, how are these stories making you feel? How is this scrolling making you feel? Are you feeling like worse and worse and worse and worse? And that's then turn it off. Think about what you're grateful for. It's that simple as actually like being intentional with our actions and our thoughts and what we do that's going to help us.
Mhm. And what are some other tips and advice you can offer at this time, especially from both books?
Yeah, and really this idea of like gratitude's a huge one, and we don't practice gratitude enough. Having an attitude of gratitude, so thinking about what you're grateful for, what you already have that you are happy about. If you have two eyes and two hands and two legs, like you're doing pretty darn good. And if you could breathe fresh air, if you have your health, that's amazing because many people do not have their health. If you have one loved one in your life, you're doing phenomenal, right? If you have a dog or a cat that you love, awesome, right? There's just so many little things that we forget to be grateful for. If you can wake up and feel the sunshine on your face and you're not in captivity, that's amazing, right? So honor and celebrate the gratitude you already have. So that's a huge, life hack is celebrate gratitude. The other hack I would suggest is get rest, get sleep, whether it's 6 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, get your sleep. That's going to be helping you process big emotions. It's going to help you deal with life. How often do we go to sleep angry or sad or mad and you wake up feeling fine? That's because your brain does work to help you get healthy, feel better. The other thing is to breathe. Definitely take the time to breathe. As a society, we're always so fast forward. We forget to take a nice big inhale. So, nice big inhale right now through your nose, long breath out through your mouth. That right there is self-care. That breath is actually meaningful and it matters. And you did it with intent and you have this ability to kind of slow life down to breathe. The other
Mhm.
thing is drink water. Drink water. It helps flush out your system. It helps prevent ulcers. It helps prevent dehydration. It helps prevent migraine. So water is really like something we need in life to help us with our health and wellness. So, I mean, I can keep going. The last one I'll say is smile. Smiling not only helps, you feel better about life, it actually like makes you more likable. If people see you smiling, whether you're looking at them or not, you're gonna seem as someone who actually like brings like joy to others, right? How often do you start laughing when someone else is laughing? Maybe not even knowing what they're laughing at, but there's just that joy is contagious. So share that joy, and that's where, the life hacks that I can share with you today.
Mhm. Of course, before I ask another question, we all got to breathe. And where can we find all your books at? And what's your website, Cindy?
Yeah, and so Amazon's wonderful. The books are on Amazon, so finding your purpose and or finding your wellness. If you Google Cindi Saj, so CINDISAJ, I have a website, a lot of different listings. So the book is available in like Indigo, it's available in Barnes and Noble, it's available a lot of different sources. So if you even just Google my name, so CINDISAJ, I have a website, so cindysaj.com. Yeah, I'm pretty accessible online, so feel free to Google that. I have Instagram, Facebook. Feel free to reach out with any questions. I am a trained mental health provider, so feel free to kind of reach out for counseling if I'm in your area. And yeah, I'm definitely out there on the World Wide Web, so feel free to look up myself.
We'll certainly check that out as well, too. Here's the amazing Dr. Cindi Saj of Finding Your Purpose and Finding Your Wellness here on the Mike Wagner Show. Just a few more things, Cindy. What else can we expect in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, and so I'm in the middle of doing some research right now around incorporating different theoretical orientations or modalities of healing. So I'm using, and I'm trained for EMDR, which is a whole other topic, but I'm using stuff like body movement and positive psychology and yoga to actually find some workshops to help people gain self-esteem and stability. So I'm incorporating things that I'm passionate about to give others the tools to kind of find wellness. So you'll see me publishing about that in research articles. I'm also opening a yoga dome, which is kind of a fun thing. Definitely doing some more publishing. So you're going to hear about me a little bit more with a couple more books coming out. But yeah, just keep on sharing the gift of knowledge and keep on, smiling for others to find that joy as well.
And that's very important as well, too, Cindy. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'd say my mom. Definitely my mom, who's not the trained therapist, but who really has that like natural ability to kind of show up for others.
I think that's really great. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, like I said, like smile, drink water, get sleep, and think about gratitude. What are you
Mhm.
grateful for?
And I think that's really important. We're here with the amazing Dr. Cindi Saj of Finding Your Purpose, a guidebook to a more meaningful life, and Finding Your Wellness, a guidebook to self-care on the Mike Wagner Show. Cindi, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. And once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your books?
Yeah, so www.cindisaj.com. So www.cindisaj.com. The book Finding Your Purpose is on Amazon. Just Google Finding Your Purpose, Amazon, you'll find it. Finding Your Wellness also on Amazon. And yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, etc. So just reach out, Cindisaj.
We'll certainly check you guys out. Once again, Cindi, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. We wish you all the best. And Cindi, you definitely have a great future ahead.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day. You're wonderful as well.